Folks, if this is your first time in the criminal justice system, my heart goes out to you. I've been helping people through this system since 1993. My name's John Guidry. I need to talk to you about what happens in over 90% of the criminal cases here in Florida. And the vast majority of the cases in Florida are going to end up in a plea. Now, you may ask yourself, what the heck is a plea? Because you see some stuff on TV, you got to write that off. That's Hollywood, that's drama. But we have three different types of pleas, basically, in the state of Florida. We've got a not guilty plea, we've got a guilty plea, and we've got a no contest plea. Now, I'm going to give you this knowledge, but I don't want you to really run off and use this knowledge without an attorney. I think you need an attorney, and I do sound like a barber telling you you need a haircut, because you do need a haircut. Here's what happens when you go to court alone and you have to enter a plea. I'm going to recommend, of course, that you enter a not guilty plea until you've talked to somebody. That's the first type of plea in Florida. A not guilty plea gets the ball rolling. There is no such thing as an innocent plea. You cannot plead innocent, all right? That means that the court will appoint you an attorney. That means you'll go get an attorney. And that means the state has to lawyer up and the state has to prove their case beyond every reasonable doubt. The next type of plea that we've got here in Florida is a guilty plea. That is exactly like it sounds. You are admitting guilt. You are admitting that you did this, and the only thing left to do once you tell the judge, I'm guilty, I'm entering a guilty plea, is really to be sentenced. For some people, you don't want to be sentenced by some of these judges if you just show up alone and you say, I plead guilty, because bad things can happen to you under those circumstances. However, a guilty plea is just what we know it to be. You're admitting guilt. You're going to have a criminal record. You're waiving all your rights to a trial, to confront witnesses, to question witnesses. You're waiving your right to remain silent or testify at your trial. All those things. You're waiving the right to have your attorney present at trial, where your attorney can cross-examine the state's witnesses and the state has to prove their case beyond every reasonable doubt. Now, you're throwing all that out the window when you enter a guilty plea. And here's another thing you got to realize about a guilty plea. In Florida, we have criminal rules that make it very difficult to say, have this buyer's remorse where you're like, I didn't mean to do that. I don't want this sentence. I don't want to enter this plea. In order to withdraw a plea in Florida, very difficult to do. Hard to get out of a plea. So once you enter that guilty plea, it's not like as important as saying I do at the altar is. You can always get a divorce if you get married and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Who is this person? You can't do that on a plea. Guilty, you're done. You're just going to be sentenced, and you pretty much can't get out of it. You have 30 to 60 days to try to withdraw a plea, and there are some very narrow lanes that you can drive in order to withdraw that plea. Finally, the third type of plea that you need to think about is what we call a no contest plea. A nolo contendere plea here in the state of Florida means that you do not contest the evidence against you. You're like, I'm not saying I did it, I'm not saying I didn't do it, but let's move on to sentencing. You're not contesting anything. Now, a no contest plea is really the same thing as a guilty plea in terms of telling the judge, it's time to sentence me, judge. And you are giving up all your rights to a trial. You're giving up your right to question witnesses, to call witnesses, to have a jury, to remain silent. All those rights are out the window when you enter that no contest plea. The interesting thing about some no contest pleas here in Florida is that they can be used against you or not. A guilty plea can always be used against you, folks. If you plead guilty to a DUI and there was some damage done to somebody else, they can use that admission of guilt, that guilty plea, against you in a civil suit. When you plead no contest, under a lot of no contest pleas, not all of them, you're not really giving an admission of guilt that can be used against you in a civil case. So that's a benefit of a no contest plea. Some judges won't take no contest pleas on certain charges. Some judges won't take no contest pleas if you're getting a withhold of adjudication, which means if the judge is going to not convict you, we call that withholding adjudication. So you don't have a felony conviction on your record. I know a few Orange County judges are like, I'll give you the benefit of having a withhold so that you can still vote, you can still own a gun. However, you better admit that you're guilty of this. Otherwise, you're not getting the benefit of a withhold. That's a little quirk. By the way, judges can refuse your plea. They often do refuse a plea. especially depending on how good it is. Sometimes these judges, they want jail or prison, and your attorney worked out a deal where you're not going away. I get that sinking feeling, Mr. Guidry, prosecutor, I need you to come to the bench. Mr. Guidry, I'm not accepting this plea. Your boy, your girl needs to go to jail. Your boy, your girl needs to go to prison. That's when we do this tap dance at the bench where we talk to the judge about the facts that the judge doesn't know. Your Honor, what has not been disclosed to you in the police report that you just read, in the depositions that we did, in our investigation, in our forensic experts that we hired, XYZ happened, and the prosecutor's taking that into account, and that is why we have come to this agreement of, okay, Mr. Guidry, I'll go forward with this deal. Those are the 3 types of pleas here in Florida. I hope you have an attorney to navigate those 3 pleas for you. If something happened to you in Central Florida, give me a call. I've been doing this since 1993. If not, I could use like whatever random button these companies are coming up with. By the time you watch this, there's some new buttons, but right now it's called subscribe or follow. Who knows what it is later? I thank you for your support. Thanks for watching.